What happened when you died?
I'd met a man through work and we ended up getting married, and it was one of the most horrendous, violent, abusive relationships I've ever seen. I don't like talking about the day I died because it was due to his assaulting me. So I now am a counsellor, obviously. I've got a lot of qualifications to help people through domestic abuse when it does occur, because I believe thoroughly that everything does happen for a reason, and I was put into that position so obviously so I can help others going through the same thing. So what happened May 6, 2001? I was struggling to breathe. I was quite sick. Um, I woke up at about 2 o'clock in the morning. I could not breathe at all. And I made myself get up because I was dying to go to the toilet. Literally, haha, so I can joke about this stuff. Dying to go to the toilet. I made it to the toilet, and as I got to the toilet, I remember taking a breath and I went to sleep. I actually didn't go to sleep. I died. So I then found myself floating in my living room, which was about 5 rooms away. My body was in the bedroom on the ensuite toilet, and I had no concern for where she was. She was, because I was now in the living room, floating up near the ceiling, and I was calm, collected. I had no thoughts of, oh my God, there's so much dust on that bookcase. There was no thoughts of who's going to pay the bills, who's going to feed the dogs. There was nothing like that. It was totally calmness with no emotional triggers at all. I watched the front door come, there was a knock at the door, and I saw my ex, well, is now my ex. He came through the room, opened the door, he let in the paramedics. I watched the fire department personnel come in. I saw another two paramedics come through. So after I got all my medical files, I've realised that all that process was actually 45 minutes in Earth time. So from the time of the first paramedics, the second paramedics until they wheeled me out, that was 45 minutes. So I was floating for that Earth time 45 minutes. When they left with my body, I was still floating there. And that's when these orbs came through the door. Brilliant, beautiful, dark blue orbs. Some were small, some were bigger, and they were circular, oh, vibrating energy is what I call it. It was energy. I could see in the middle of them. And look, it even makes my eyes water just thinking about them because they were so loving. They were hovering around me, but they did not communicate with me, but I could tell that they communicated with each other because they didn't bump into each other. They hovered around me for probably 2 or 3 minutes. I'm not sure, it could have been 15 minutes. But then they all just stopped and they all went out the door. Then I found myself in what I call the fog stage. It's like closing your eyes and you open your eyes and you're in a totally different place. I'm now standing in this field of flowers. Beautiful, calm. The colours I cannot explain. And as I'm looking around the rolling hills with all these beautiful flowers, I looked down and I found that I now had feet because when I was floating, I didn't have feet. So I looked down and as I tried to walk, the flowers moved to avoid being crushed. But then I had an awareness. They moved because they knew that I thought I would crush them. So they knew my thoughts. I didn't, I couldn't have crushed them because I was no longer in a physical body. So they showed that compassion and perspective, that they were respecting my thoughts. I walked down through the valleys. I saw cities way, way off in the distance. I walked down through oceans, past houses, down footpaths. So when I mention how long I was in this place, I have to estimate because I walk at about 4 miles per hour. That's my pace of walking. So as I'm walking down past houses and structures and trees, etc., I estimate in this place I would have been there for about 18 months because not only the conversations that I had where it wasn't just say, hey, how are you today? It was long conversations. And also when I contemplated my emotions and thoughts, which I'll go into in a minute. But I estimate I was there for about 18 months. Walking into the big buildings, there was no technology, so there was no elevators or escalators, but there were stairs if I wanted to use them. Because by now I'd learnt what I thought I created. So if I thought about being on top of the mountain, I was instantly on top of that mountain. If I thought to be the duck, instantly I became the duck where I could feel feathers and webbed feet and my bill. So we contemplate, we think, and we create. That's what is the biggest message of heaven because it's so loving that we constantly create love within us and everything else around us because everything was one. Okay. So in this place, I reckon I was there for about 18 months. The music, I cannot explain the music because we don't have instruments here that describe it. But when I close my eyes, I am still encapsulated by that music. It is right there. I can hear it right now. And it's like a repetitive tribal dance of music. But I cannot tell you what. It's not a string instrument. It's not a percussion, and it's not a wind instrument. Is it the voice of angels? Possibly, because I've never heard anything like it in my life. So I'm in this place walking and talking, becoming other people. I watched bears turning into little boys. I watched this woman. Now, this was a really interesting one because she was right next to me when she did this. She was a medieval woman, sort of like Anne Boleyn, dressed in this long velvety type gown. She had the nice headpiece from the 1400s or the 1600s, and instantly she changed and she became this 1970s hippie in a little flower power dress, mini dress, and she had a little black bob. I watched her and I instantly realized that we are not changing our appearance, we are changing our lives because we're now at a soul level where we are all the lives that we had ever lived in that lifetime of our soul existence. So when we talk about past lives, I just didn't see past lives because in this place time did not exist. I saw people with such sci-fi type clothes on 3,000 years in the future because that's one of their lives that they had lived, even though it hasn't existed yet in our existence on this three-dimensional world. So there was no time in this place. Then I get this tap on my shoulder and I now find myself back in the fog stage and I'm now outside of this huge cathedral made of sandstone and wood. The wood paneling, I estimate 300 feet of wood paneling just from one tree. So you can't imagine the size of the trees it would have been to create this structure. As I walked in, the sandstone blocks, I can't explain how big these were, they melded with the wood. So there was that connection. And there was long pews, long church chairs called pews. Probably 30 people could easily sit on these seats, and it was made from one piece of wood. Immaculate, beautiful. And as I'm looking down this long corridor, way at the end, there was 3 beings there. So I'll just quickly show you this one. That's my book cover with these 3 beings. They were not beings, they were energy. The energy was going up like a reverse waterfall, and it was swirling around where their heads were. But it wasn't just going one way, it was going both ways at once. And it was dimensional. I could see into them. And in front of them, there was this huge box, and it had energy coming out of it. I could see the energy rays, and it was beautiful. But I wasn't scared. I was so calm. And one of them spoke to me telepathically, and they said, "We are not here to judge." And instantly I knew that I was here to judge. I was here to judge me. Every action I'd done, every reaction I had done, every thought I had ever had is a creation of an intention that puts energy out there into the ether that causes a ripple that does affect others. So when I'm in an angry mood, that anger comes out of me like a ripple of energy, and it affects other people. And this is what happens when we walk into a room and we smile, because our emotions are contagious. So everybody else starts smiling. So in this place, I had to look into that box, and in the box were thousands, millions of my memories, all in little round orbs with like a little TV screen in the middle. And as I pick out a memory and I'm holding it in my hand, first of all, I watch the replay of this memory to see it from an outsider's perspective. But then I became me. And I have to go through all the why did I do that? How did I do that? Why did you do that for? And then I become the other person or animal as the consequence of my actions. And I became their perspective. Why did Lynda do that to me for? Ouch, that hurt. Why did Lynda hurt me for? And some of my memories were good where I've been nice to people. And it's tenfold. The emotion is so amplified that anything I did good, even smiling at a stranger, in heaven when I'm judging myself, why did you do that? I'm crying my eyes out with the appreciation and the gratitude from the person I smiled at. So bad things that I've done, like, I don't know, we all do it. We tell people, oh, stop doing that to me. You know, we've been nasty every now and again. When you're angry and you flick somebody off or you say things that you don't really mean, all those memories of our intentions is what we have to heal. So how many of these memories did I go through? I think I processed 6,000 or 8,000 of them, picking one out at a time, and then the process of healing it. Some of them would have been probably, if I had to guess, 10, 15 minutes. But other ones were more heavily, really not nice ones or really good ones, where you've really got to sit there and psychoanalyze it. Why did you do that? What was that repercussion? What was the ripple that happened as a consequence of that? So we have to go through all those ripples. So I look at people in history. Let's go there with someone that we don't know, Adolf Hitler. Obviously, not everyone is totally 100% bad. His girlfriend, Eva Braun, obviously saw something nice in him. Yeah? So we can't judge if he was all bad or partly good or whatever, because we separate from him. But when we look at his atrocities, like the genocide with Auschwitz, which is horrible, extremely horrible things. I today in 2023, I'm sitting here now with you telling you what a man 100 years ago did. But because I'm having this emotional effect from what he did, he had to now heal that ripple in his life review. Even though I've never met him, but because I know him and I get that emotional response to what he did, he now, when he faced his life review, standing there with his own box of memories, or however he perceived it in his own reality, he has to go through every single one of those lifetimes. Every single person that he deliberately hurt, he has to judge himself why he did it. We don't have to be that, we don't have to be the one that says, I'm going to punish you for this. I don't have to be the one who says, I'm going to make you suffer for what you've done, because ultimately that's just my ego. And when we let go of ego and we allow karmic energy to do its job, when they are standing there, going through that box of their memories, believe me, it is tenfold. So why do we have people being nasty? That was taught to me after I finished my life review. I got the tap on the shoulder, and now I find myself in this white space. No walls, no floors, no ceiling. But I can't feel what I'm standing on. So if you put your feet on the floor right now, you can feel floor there. I couldn't feel floor. It was all white. It was like I was floating, but I wasn't floating. And way off in the distance was a woman. And as she walked, she got bigger towards me as she came towards me. She comes up to me and she's so angry and she says, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here. And I said, well, what do you mean? I don't know where I am. She calms herself down and she's like flattening down her dress like this. She says, do you know who I am? And I said, no. She says, I am your great, 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 great grandmother, Karina. Okay, this took me back a little bit because up until then, I've had 18 months like Earth time if I've been in my life review, processing all these thousands of memories. Heaven was so nice. And here I am having this woman sort of like yelling at me. So she starts talking about herself, where she lived, how she was brought up, how to make an axe out of a tree, how to make a device to do washing of laundry on, how to go to the toilet, how to cook bread. Extremely long processes involved, every minute detail. So if we were talking on a phone, this would have been weeks and weeks and months just talking about her stuff. But then she starts talking about me. And some of the things that she said to me, now I remember her quotes, not like it was yesterday, but it's like I just got off the phone with her now. As soon as I close my eyes, I'm still there talking to her. And one of the things that she said to me was, you must go back and you must remember this date, because the date she told me. She said, on this date, you will conceive your daughter, who is very important to us. Us? Daughter? You're telling me a date 4 years away? So now I'm feeling like John Connor out of the Terminator movies, sort of. So she's telling me about jobs that I'm going to have. She told me I'd work with the police for 10 years. I did, 2002 to 2012. She told me I'd need 2 years off because of all the stress from that job, which I did because I got PTSD. She told me I'd work as a first aid trainer for 2 years. And she said, you must go there to learn the lessons of how to look after others. I was a first aid trainer for exactly 2 years, January 15 to January 17. How did she know that in 2001? She told me about earthquakes. She told me about that Indonesian tsunami where 250,000 souls would be lost. She told me, you will be sitting on your device, on your computer, and you will be watching the land to your east. The land will grow 3 miles from the volcano. Now, when that volcano happened in Hawaii a few years ago, I was there every day watching that lava flow because I knew, and I told people the week before that happened, that we're going to have a volcano in Hawaii is about to go bang, and it's going to grow 3 miles of land. So I sat there every day watching that lava spewing out of that volcano and all the fissures where it grew 3 miles of land. She told me about the vaccines. She told me about COVID. She told me about how many millions would die over the next couple of years. But then she said, from 2025, we enter this space where a peace can come. So she told me about 2025 till 2030, where people start, she didn't say waking up, but it was interpreted to me as people are learning what is truly out there. So this to me was people are waking up, like growing spiritually. We are realizing that this materialistic world with governments, banking systems, food, because in heaven we don't eat, all this materialistic stuff that we exist in is not the end of the story. So then Karina started talking to me about life lessons, life contracts, reincarnation. She said, you cannot go into that tunnel. So I've got a picture of the tunnel, what it looks like, and I explained the tunnel. She said, if you go into that tunnel, you can never go back. And that's where I said to her, what do you mean go back? Because I don't know how I got here in the first place. She said to me, she was telling me things like, how do we learn self-sacrifice unless we are a child who dies before we are born? How do we learn to grieve unconditionally for somebody unless we are the mother of that unborn child? And how do we learn forgiveness and understanding of other people's issues unless we're the father of that unborn child? That's how she spoke. So when she was telling me about bad people doing bad things, she said, how do you know what is good unless you see someone who does something wrong? How do we learn to be better unless we personally experience trauma, grief, and uncertainty to make us stronger, to be that strength for others? That's how she spoke. So in this space, how long was I with her? I estimate about 18 months, 2 years. You know, when you sit there and you're on the phone with a friend and you're talking back and forward, and then you look at the call log and it says an hour, you can actually sit there and think, okay, this is what we spoke about in that hour. When I spoke to Karina, I have to estimate that at 18 months to 2 years, because that's how long these conversations were. And it wasn't like it was a knowing like in heaven. It was back and forward talking out of our mouths, talking, not telepathic, where it took time to say the sentence structure, to make the words. Because in heaven, when we speak, we don't have to say, how are you today? We think, how are you today? And it is known instantly by the other person, because what we think, we create. So Karina says to me, after she tells me about life contracts, life lessons, why we come here, what is reincarnation, what are souls' purposes, why do we leave heaven, how do we learn to love constantly unless we're taken away from that. So we learn the value of it. Imagine the first day that you go to the beach, you're excited, you're exhilarated, you run down in that sand, I'm at the beach. The second day you run down, it's like, oh yeah, I'm at the beach. Third day you're there and it's like, oh yeah, here I am again. So we lose that passion, that excitement, and most of all, love for what we experience. So we come here with all these dramas and illnesses, stress and bills. So we keep that love alive by creating it, even in all that adversity of all this nasty stuff coming at us. How do we learn to love unless it's taken away? So we value the importance of it. That's what she said. So then she said, it's time to go. You've got to go back. And I said again, how do I go back? I don't know where I was. She said, Lynda, haven't you worked it out yet? Think about where you were and you become where you were. So I closed my eyes and I thought about the house where I lived with my ex-husband. And instantly I'm now finding myself in a hospital bed and I've got this extremely horrible pain in my arm from the blood pressure cuff doing my blood pressure. It hurt severely because remember, 5 years I've been gone where there's no pains, no aches, no cramps, no bathroom breaks or food. This was so new to me, having to deal with pain. And as I sort of wake up and I'm opening my eyes, because I'm very short-sighted, which didn't help this day, but I can watch them as they're pulling the blue tube out of my lungs because I've been on life support. That wasn't too good, by the way, because I could see it very clearly. And I can hear the nurse, are you there, Lynda? Are you there? If you can hear me, squeeze my hand. So now I've got a hand and I'm trying to physically squeeze her hand. And I could hear the nurse saying, she's here, she's here, she's waking up, she's waking up. That's me coming out of my coma.